Hey everybody, it's Mr. George, and I wanted to do a quick video to just kind of review the process on how to do a DBQ, a document-based question, when documents are provided to you. Okay, so first step obviously is to read the question, understand the question, and to make sure you understand the assignment. And then you have to read the documents. Okay, so just try and like familiarize yourself with all the documents. You want to make sure that you read all of them, not just the ones at the beginning, because the ones at the end might actually be like really helpful documents that will help you prove your point. So the whole point of a DBQ is to prove your point, just like if you were in court and you were trying to prove your case in court by using your evidence. Okay, the evidence that we're going to be using are the documents that are provided to you, as well as outside information. So when you're reading each document, you are expected to take notes and to analyze each document. When we say analyze it, we don't just mean read it. You can use the acronym HIP, H-I-P-P, as far as looking at historical context, the intended audience, point of view or perspective, or the purpose of the actual document, to try and help you, figure out the who's the document about, who wrote the document, why was it created, what's the purpose, do they have some type of like agenda or bias. So you need to be able to analyze each document, and somehow the next step is to group them or categorize them. A really simple process is to read the first document and put that in the first group. Looking at the second document, if it's not related to the first one, then it becomes its own group. Then go on to the third document. If it's not related to A or B, then put it in the third group. Now, if you're provided with 7 documents, you obviously don't just want to have 7 different groups. So when we talk about grouping them, it can be based on geography, as far as, okay, Group A is China, Group B is India, or you could look at certain themes. For example, Group A might be laws, Group B might be religion. You might find that when you're creating these labels for the groups, that maybe they're just too broad. Maybe you need to like break them into like smaller groups. For example, instead of social, political, economic, which tends to be kind of a an easy way to categorize them into 3 groups, you may need to look at different categories. So for example, as far as like social, maybe it's social classes, or maybe it's entertainment, or maybe it's religion. Okay, really depends on what the question is, and we'll be looking at a question with an example in a minute. So you have to go through all the documents, and you want to put them into different groups. Now, as you get better at this skill, a document can be in more than one group, and I would highly recommend that you don't just put one document in one group. You have to be able to look at a document from different points of view. And don't just have 3 groups. Ultimately, the groups become the paragraphs. So ultimately, we're looking for 3 groups that you can use. So if you just have 3, sometimes those 3 don't really fit together. So I would encourage you to have at least 4 or 5 groups, so that it provides some options to you. So then you can decide, okay, you know what, I'm not going to use group C, I'm going to use group A, B, and D. And then obviously label those groups. So once you figure out the 3 groups, you have your 3 body paragraphs, you already have your evidence. The next part, which I believe is probably one of the most challenging parts of this, is coming up with your main idea. This is your thesis statement. Okay, so the whole point of a thesis statement is to create one sentence that is going to unite the 3 different groups. And you're not just listing the label names. So as far as some guidelines, it needs to be debatable. It just can't be a fact. If it's just a true statement, then we don't need to write a 5-body paragraph essay to prove something that is just a true statement. It needs to be specific enough so that you can actually prove it. That's the whole point, not just to write and describe the documents, but to use parts of the document to prove your point. And it needs to be broad enough so you can actually write about, the question that's being asked of you. Okay, so broad enough, yet specific enough. I would recommend, especially as you're acquiring these skills, just take the question and flip it around and then add some type of action verb. For example, flip the question around in something that creates or shapes or influences or impacts. Don't just flip the question around and just end with some type of noun, like cultural diffusion. Okay? And I'll give you an example. In a minute. So, as far as already stated, you want to use your documents, and then the documents you're allowed to pull outside information. If a document is just a picture, for example, if it's just an image of the Roman Colosseum, you don't need to just write about the architecture because that's what you actually see. You need to go a little bit deeper. For example, the Colosseum demonstrated the power of the emperor or the power of government. Even though it doesn't actually say that, by looking at the actual image, you are now starting to infer things. See things that are not just provided to you. And it's the same with words. Don't limit yourself just to the words that the documents give you. It's okay to infer. That's how you're going to be able to incorporate other aspects related to the document to your paper. Okay. Once you create your main idea, and again, it's like a 3-legged stool. We have 3 legs. Each leg is a group. Each leg is a body paragraph. And then the top of the stool is the actual main idea, which is your thesis statement. Okay. The main idea should not have 3 different unrelated ideas. It needs to be one idea that you're trying to prove. And that's a lot of work, even though you may not see a lot on your Google Doc, okay, or your Word doc, whatever you're putting on. But once you actually create the structure for this, then by creating the outline, you'll ensure that you do have enough evidence, and you can obviously make changes at this point. And then once you figure out, yes, I'm going to get the green light, it looks good, then that outline will just be transformed into your rough draft. And then you can go through as many iterations of drafts as you want, and then ultimately ends with a final draft. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Let's just look at a really simple example that a teenager should be able to understand. So, as the question, what's the common experience of the American teenager across the United States in 2017? So, an example thesis statement, the first half is just the question flipped around. So, the common experience of the American teenager in 2017 reflects elevated levels of stress that creates pressure to be successful. So based on my 3 groups, I have a group on academic pressure. I have a group on parental pressure. And I have a group on social pressure. So if you notice, I didn't take those 3 labels and stick them all in the main idea, because I don't want to say reflects academic, parental, and social pressure. That's just listing 3 different groups, 3 different labels. I need to be able to take these 3 and come up with different words. For example, reflects higher or elevated levels of stress that creates pressure to be successful in these 3, and I'm using these 3 different groups to help prove my main idea, which is this, based on the question that was provided up here. Another really quick example that goes a little bit into more depth is, if I take the common experience of the American teenager in 2017, is shaped by the influence of a technologically driven society. Okay. Now, if I look at 3 examples of topic sentences or developmental ideas, whatever you want to call them, I provided, up-to-date technology, cell phones, and social media. But as I go a little bit deeper, I just wanted to show you that within each paragraph, I also have 3 pieces of evidence, 3 developmental details that I'm going to use to help prove my topic sentence or developmental idea. So the way that it works is I have the evidence based on the documents. These would be 3 different documents using the documents and outside knowledge inferred or connected to each document. That's going to help prove my developmental idea or topic sentence. I'm going to do that for 3 different body paragraphs. And as a result of proving each body paragraph, I'm then going to prove my main idea. So I hope this was helpful. If you get confused, you can certainly watch this as many times as you like, but I hope it breaks down. The process is very simple. As you move through different classes, you're going to have different topics, and the process should be exactly the same. The only difference will be when you're doing a research paper where you actually have to go out and get the document. So this is the same process when documents are being provided to you by a teacher. So good luck, best wishes, until next time.